Welcome a high-stakes season of Procurement Unplugged podcast powered by Zycus. I am Marquise, your host, and we'll discuss everything around tariffs and its impact on procurement this season. Earlier this month, the U.S. government declared Liberation Day, launching a sweeping set of tariffs on imports from multiple countries, including some long-standing trade partners. You can just imagine the chaos that unleashed for procurement organizations.
Oh, absolutely. Immediate shockwaves.
Yeah, immediate cost spikes, total confusion about compliance, and suppliers, well, understandably panicking. It was a real jolt.
It really was. The scale and the suddenness of it all just threw a massive wrench in the works for global supply chains. It was fascinating in a scary way how quickly established relationships, cost models.
Everything up in the air.
Exactly. Just poof, up in the air.
Right. And then just as everyone's scrambling, trying to figure out plan B, plan C, we get this twist, this unexpected 90-day pause on most of the tariffs. Now, China's tariffs, that's different. They actually went up significantly, 145%, which is, well, a whole other discussion maybe.
A very different story, yes.
But for many other trade lanes, it felt like someone just slammed the brakes, hit the pause button.
That's a really good way to put it. It definitely created this moment of, well, apparent calm after that initial shockwave. A chance, maybe, to catch a breath.
So this is the big question we're diving into today for you, our listeners. Is this 90-day pause genuine relief? Is it a real chance for you and your team to, regroup strategically? Or is it just like the quiet before a much bigger storm? Because the stakes for procurement strategies right now, they're incredibly high. This isn't just a few price tweaks.
No, absolutely not. This goes way beyond short-term cost adjustments. It really cuts to the core, the fundamental resilience, the adaptability of your entire supply chain. Can it actually bend without breaking? That's the real question.
And to help us unpack all this, we're really pleased to have Elaine Richter with us today. Elaine's a global procurement risk and compliance advisor. She's been right there in the trenches, helping companies navigate huge disruptions, things like Brexit, and now this whole Liberation Day tariff situation. Elaine, thanks for joining the deep dive.
It's my pleasure. It's definitely a critical time, and I'm glad to be here to help everyone listening think through what this pause really means, or doesn't mean.
Okay, so our mission today really is to cut through that maybe initial feeling of relief that this pause brought. We need to dig into what this pause doesn't solve, those deeper vulnerabilities the tariffs exposed. And crucially, give our listeners some concrete, actionable things they can actually do during this, frankly, limited 90-day window.
Exactly. This is not the time to sit back. It's the time for focused, strategic action. That's the key message, I think.
Okay, let's jump in then. First up, this idea of the illusion of safety. Elaine, I'm hearing from folks, maybe even some listeners right now, thinking, okay, tariffs paused, maybe the crisis is kind of over. What's your reaction to that?
That thinking is dangerous. It's a trap. It's really easy to breathe that sigh of relief, but like you said, it's a pause on most tariffs, not a resolution. Think of it like, okay, imagine your car engine is overheating badly, red light flashing, steam.
Right.
And you slam on the emergency brake.
Right.
You avoided the immediate crash, that's the pause. But the underlying problem, the engine's still overheating. It's still there, isn't it?
Yeah, okay, that makes it really clear. So in this scenario, what's our overheating engine that we still need to fix?
It's the fundamental weaknesses, the ones that were already there but maybe hidden. It's the over-reliance on certain geographies or maybe just a handful of suppliers. The lack of real diversification beyond just having, say, 2 suppliers instead of 1.
Right, the surface level stuff.
Exactly. And contracts. Let's not forget the contracts. Most were simply not built to handle this kind of sudden, massive policy shift. Liberation Day was like a brutal stress test. It revealed all these cracks.
But the cracks are still there.
The cracks are still there. The pause didn't magically fix them.
So even though that immediate tariff pressure might be off for a bit, those fundamental weaknesses, the sourcing fragility, hasn't gone away. Makes sense.
Not at all. And it's really critical for listeners to grasp that this is temporary. Policies can snap back or change again very quickly. And those underlying vulnerabilities, they'll leave you just as exposed, maybe even more so next time. And the next disruption could be worse.
Okay, important point. So let's move on then. Let's talk about unmasking the hidden weaknesses. When these tariffs first hit, what did they really show us about supplier networks? What were some of the surprises CPOs found?
Well, one of the most eye-opening things for a lot of organizations was the gap between their perceived diversification and their actual resilience. Many thought, okay, we're diversified. We have supplier A in Vietnam, supplier B in Thailand. Looks good on paper, but what the tariff shock really highlighted was a critical lack of deeper structural and, importantly, geographical diversification further down the chain.
Can you break that down a bit? What's the real difference there? Surface versus deep.
Sure. So you might have those two tier one suppliers, Vietnam and Thailand, seemingly independent. But you dig down,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you find out both of them rely heavily, critically on the same tier two supplier back in, say, China for a crucial component or a specific raw material.
Ah,
So when the tariffs hit that tier two component coming out of China, boom. Both your supposedly diversified tier ones get hit equally hard. Delivery delays, cost hikes, everything.
so it's not just who you buy from directly. It's tracing back where the essential bits and pieces actually come from, that hidden layer.
Exactly that. And this is where so much of the pain really emerged. Many CPOs initially saw maybe 15–25% of their direct tier one suppliers impacted, manageable perhaps. But the real cost explosions, the big delivery disruptions, they often came from that much larger, maybe 30, even 40% exposure at tier two. Those component suppliers, material suppliers, that procurement often had very little direct line of sight into.
And that lack of visibility, that seems like a huge challenge in itself. Why is it so hard to see that far down the chain?
Well, for many, frankly, the systems just aren't there. The internal processes aren't set up for that granularity. They might still be relying on, honestly, things like spreadsheets to manage this incredibly complex global web.
Wow.
Still. Or they lack the contractual leverage, maybe, or the tech capability to actually demand and track that info beyond tier one effectively. So they're basically operating with some pretty major blind spots.
So for our listener right now,
Mm-hmm.
if they felt a big hit from these tariffs, it might not have been the direct supplier relationship causing the biggest headache. It could well have been these unseen dependencies further down. That's a key insight.
Absolutely. And that lack of visibility, that's not just a past problem. It's a significant ongoing risk. You simply can't manage or mitigate a risk you don't even know exists.
Okay, this really paints a picture of the Vulnerabilities Liberation Day brought into sharp focus. So let's pivot. What can listeners actually do about this during this 90-day pause? Let's talk action plan, a 90-day action plan for you, the listener. Elaine, top priorities. What should CPOs be laser focused on right now?
Right. This 90-day window is gold. You cannot waste it. Approach it with real urgency. My top 3 absolutely critical priorities would be, number 1, deep tier supplier mapping. You have to go beyond tier 1. You need to understand the country of origin for all critical components, raw materials. Start using digital tools. There are platforms that can help visualize this entire supply base, map it out, pinpoint those hidden exposures.
So actively moving beyond just asking your direct supplier and really using tech to trace things back.
Got it. Exactly. Priority 2. A really thorough contract audit. Pull out those key supplier contracts. Read them with a new lens. Do they have any clauses giving you flexibility, any protection if policies like these tariffs suddenly change? My guess is, for many, the answer is no.
Yeah, probably not.
This pause is the time to identify those gaps and start thinking strategically about building that kind of resilience into future agreements.
That's such an important point. We focus so much on price, delivery, but these bigger policy risks need to be in the contract language too.
They absolutely do. And third, strongly recommend initiating regional sourcing pilots, even small scale. Start actively exploring, testing alternative regions. Look seriously at places like Mexico, maybe Vietnam again, but differently, other areas, as ways to diversify away from the regions hit hardest by tariffs. This 90-day period lets you experiment, learn, build relationships without that immediate tariff pressure for most regions.
So these pilots are like a low-stakes way to kind of test the waters, build some alternative options.
Yeah, precisely. Think of this whole 90-day period as a critical simulation, a stress test for your supply chain, but one where you have a bit of breathing room to make adjustments. You just cannot afford to let this window close without taking action.
Okay, really clear, actionable plan there. So final segment, let's talk more about how technology can specifically help implement this plan, build that longer-term resilience. Segment 4, leveraging technology for resilience. Elaine, you mentioned digital tools for mapping. Can you give more specifics on how tech addresses these challenges?
Absolutely. This is where modern procurement tech really shines. Platforms like Zycus, for example, they offer that critical multi-tier visibility we've been talking about.
Okay.
Their supplier network lets you visualize not just your tier ones, but their suppliers, tier two, tier three, and crucially, their geographic locations. So you can really understand your aggregate country of origin risk, pinpoint those vulnerabilities you maybe didn't even know you had.
So it's like having a much more detailed, dynamic map of the whole ecosystem, several layers deep.
Exactly. And it's not just about knowing who and where. Zycus's supplier management tools help you proactively manage the risk. You can track certifications, automate risk assessments based on all sorts of factors, location, regulatory changes. You can continuously monitor compliance status across different regions. It gives you a much more dynamic, real-time picture of your overall supplier risk profile.
That sounds like it could take a huge amount of the manual work and, frankly, guesswork out of managing risk proactively.
It absolutely does. And for those regional sourcing pilots we discussed and just making smarter sourcing decisions overall, Zycus's strategic sourcing suite has some really powerful tools. You can model different sourcing scenarios, filtering by region, compare total landed costs, factoring in potential tariffs or other regional costs.
Oh, okay.
You can even run simulated bidding events under different tariff conditions. It really becomes that 90-day decision lab, letting you test, optimize, and plan your sourcing strategies before making big commitments.
So it's not just reacting anymore. It's using this time to proactively model different futures, make more informed, resilient decisions going forward.
Exactly. It's strategically leveraging this pause to build a genuinely more agile, adaptable supply chain for the long run, one that's better equipped for the next disruption, whatever it might be.
Okay, Elaine, this has been incredibly insightful, really practical advice, a clear path forward for our listeners. As we wrap up, final warning. A clear call to action for the procurement pros listening today.
My final thought is this. Please, do not be lulled into a false sense of security by this 90-day pause. Do not. It is absolutely not a sign the danger has passed. Think of it as a critical warning signal, a temporary window, a limited time to take meaningful action.
So definitely not time to just relax and go back to business as usual. The underlying problems are still there.
Precisely. This is the time. Use every single one of these 90 days. Proactively build deeper intelligence into your supply network, fundamentally strengthen its resilience, build in the flexibility you will need for future uncertainty. Don't let this crucial window just slip away.
Powerful. Really underscores the urgency. Elaine, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Glad I could help.
And to our listeners, if you want to grab this 90-day pause by the horns, really equip your teams with the tools to build that essential intelligence, resilience, flexibility. We highly recommend checking out Zycus's comprehensive suite. That includes their supplier network, the advanced supplier management tools, and that powerful strategic sourcing suite we talked about. You can explore all of it and learn much more at Zycus.com. That's Zicus.ipom. Coming up next time on The Deep Dive, we're tackling another really critical issue in the shifting global trade landscape. We'll be diving into how increasing trade war bureaucracy, all the complex compliance rules, how that's potentially slowing down your crucial procurement processes right when you need speed and agility the most. You won't want to miss that deep dive into trade war bureaucracy. Until then, stay sharp, stay proactive, and keep diving deep.